Hello again. We are Chris Lee and Chase Robinson of Southeastern 16, continuing our preview series of SEC football teams for 2024. Today we get to Mississippi State, a program that's had a ton of turmoil, 3 coaches in 3 years. This time it is Jeff Lebby, who has been an offensive coordinator at Oklahoma, and before that at Ole Miss, respected offensive mind. But my goodness, just the wreckage of just all the stuff that has happened at Mississippi State that started with the unfortunate passing of Mike Leach. There's been a lot of turnover at State, and it'll be interested to see how Jeff Lebby is able to reassemble the parts this year because, boy, there's going to be a lot of new parts or a lot of parts that aren't new but asked to be doing things they haven't done before, and things like that. So this is a hard team to figure, Chase.
It is, and they've gone through the unthinkable, like you said. Like Mississippi State has gone through what most teams will never go through, and losing a head coach, and then all that comes with that, the having to find someone to replace him, making the tough decisions. Do you go with an interim tag? Do you make the guy the full-time head coach? All the personnel changes that go along with that, and last year was, was the year where they kind of had to make those tough decisions and figure some things out. They came to the conclusion Zach Arnett was not the guy they wanted to lead the program. And so now they turn to Jeff Lebby, but still the aftermath of everything that's happened is what we're seeing now with coaching changes, with personnel changes, with having to completely assemble a new roster pretty much for this year. And so it'll be an interesting year for sure for the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Before we dive any deeper into the Dogs, let's talk about BetOnline. They are the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything online sports betting. Right now, you can receive a 50% free bet of up to $250 on your first deposit to bet on anything from the Olympics to baseball to Formula One racing. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, you can head over to the online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of the over 150 slots games. Head over to the website today to get in on the action. Use promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your 50% free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. Bet online, the game starts here.
Chase, let's start with Mississippi State's offense. The high points, I think that Jeff Lebby did a really good job in the portal of bringing in skill guys. You got Blake Shapen, the quarterback, who is a very talented kid who had a nice season at Baylor, 13 touchdowns, 3 picks. They landed Davon Booth in the transfer portal from Utah State. Running back is going to be a place where they're going to give carries to a lot of new faces or give more carries to familiar faces. But he ran for 805 yards a year ago at Utah State, 6.7 yards per carry. They got the receiver in the portal. I think if you start logging receiving yards last year, regardless of whether they were at whether that was an SEC school or somewhere else, I think Kelly, and I'm going to botch the name probably, Akharaiyi, I guess, from UTEP, who last year caught 46 passes for 1,033 yards. And often you see a guy get less than 50 catches and turn that into over 1,000 yards, but that's what that kid did. So he would presumably be a starter at one of the portal spots. Kevin Coleman, who was in Louisville's rotation last year as a receiver, is going to get some time. And Trent Hudson, who caught 551 yards of passes at New Mexico State last year. And speaking of guys that amassed numbers, Seydou Traore, the Arkansas State transfer, I think of all the tight ends in the SEC, his 665 yards last year were better than any tight end in this league, again, regardless of stop. Now, how does that translate? I don't know, but I felt like Jeff Lebby went out and made a pretty nice splash in terms of a quarterback and guys to get the ball to because there just wasn't much coming back.
Yeah, and you had to. I mean, he was in a tough spot of you've got very few guys returning. And so, I thought going out and get Blake Shapen was a good decision. I mean, he's battled some injuries at Baylor in the past couple of years, but he's thrown for like 30 touchdowns, I think, in the last 2 years. So I thought he was a great pickup. I think he fits well with what Jeff Lebby likes to do. The rest of the quarterback room, though, is a couple of high school guys that are coming in, and so you don't have a ton of experience behind Blake Shapen, and that's a concern because, again, Shapen has battled injury. He struggled with that. There's no denying that over the last couple of years, and so they'll try to solidify a good backup quarterback for Shapen just in case. But I like Shapen and what he brings in, and then the skill guys, Kelly Akharaiyi from UTEP. I saw him play in person last year. Very good receiver. I think he will work well with Shapen. And I like some of these other guys as well. Kevin Coleman, who's transferred in from Louisville. Trent Hudson in there as well. And, they've got some guys. I know they're really high on Mario Craver, the guy who's coming in from high school. He was a really good prospect there, 4-star guy that will be coming in. So he's a guy that may get some reps early. And I think he will be a guy to watch, maybe not this year, but in years to come there at Mississippi State. And so, they had to enhance that wide receiver room for sure. And Blake Shapen's got a good arm. He's going to be able to get it to them. And so I think they had to go out and get some good receivers, but I think Akharaiyi was a really good pickup from UTEP. And then you talk about the running back room, Chris. Excuse me, and they do have a couple of guys coming back there at running back, and that'll be an interesting position, I think, to watch. Is are they going to be able to establish the run game early in the season and it be effective? I think that's going to be something to really watch. Can they effectively run the ball? We'll just have to wait and see because I'm not sure they have the experience they would like to have at the running back position.
Yeah, and they do have some other parts there. Jeffrey Pittman among their returnees averaged 5.0 per carry last year. I think that was maybe best on the team or certainly best on the returnees. Only 54 attempts. So, and did catch some passes, caught 13 balls, which their backs tend to do. Kayvon Lee, we talked about him in another video. Didn't do much a year ago, but when he was at Penn State, I think he rushed for about $130 against Michigan as a freshman. So I don't know what the issue was last year with him not playing more, but there's been a flash of talent there. So there's that. Now, the problem for them, Chase, is the offensive line. The left side, you can argue they can make it work. Maylan Pounders started 10 games at Memphis a year ago. He is going to start at left tackle. Malik Ellis backed him up, who is his backup right now from what I see. He started 4 times for State a year ago. I think he's the only guy on the team was Ellis that returns that started any games on the offensive line. So they go get an experienced left tackle in Pounders from Memphis. They got Marlon Martinez and Jacoby Jackson battling at left guard. Martinez had 75 snaps last year at LSU, I think as a 4th or 5th year guy who's never been able to break through. Jackson at Texas Tech started 8 games a year ago, graded out pretty well on Pro Football Focus. And maybe the highlight, Ethan Miner, the center from North Texas, was one of the most highly rated centers. Pro Football Focus rated him the number 3 center in the country a year ago. He started all 12 games. But that right side's another story.
Yep. It is. And again, this is another concern. I was going to mention Miner as well. I think that's a great pickup for Jeff Lebby and Mississippi State to get him in that center position. But a lot of guys returning on the right side, but there's not a lot of experience. That right tackle position, I think, is a big concern. Leon Bell probably going to get the start there, and he's only played in 4 games. And the guy behind him, Amari Smith, didn't play. He's a redshirt guy. Albert Reese will hold down the right guard. Grant Jackson behind him. They've played some games, but it's just that right side concerns me. And teams are going to see this and try to expose that. But I think the left side, with the additions they went out and got out of the portal, I think were really good. You mentioned Maylan Pounders. I think he will be an anchor on this offensive line. But that right side really really concerns me going into the season.
Defense, kind of the same story. I feel like, at least, and it's not a surprise, Jeff Lebby is an offensive-minded coach, a very highly regarded coordinator. You would think that he would be able to recruit kids to play to that system, and he did in terms of skill position, although I think the offensive line could potentially be their undoing. Defense, though, boy, there's a lot of inexperience here. Probably the headliner, DeMonte Russell, who's getting some preseason All-SEC love. He is the only one on that defense that I've seen mentioned anywhere. They got an intriguing transfer at corner, Montre Miller from West Virginia. Don't look at last year's numbers. I think he was hurt. In 2022, he had 4 picks, 8 passes defended. That should play in this league. They've got Corey Ellington coming back as a free safety who had a relatively productive year a year ago. But then other than that, Chase, it is a lot of guys who played spot duty for this team a year ago, and a lot of transfers who are either JUCO kids or they played sparingly at their former schools for the most part.
Yeah, there's 3 guys that I think are going to bring a lot that are really going to help this defense. They bring the most experience. That's the guy you mentioned in DeMonte Russell. I think he's kind of the anchor of the defense, the defensive end there. He's got a lot of experience. His brother, Don Terry Russell, a linebacker, he brings some experience. And then Corey Ellington, the safety, I think he brings a good bit of experience to help this defense. So those 3 guys in those 3 different positions, I think, are going to be big for Mississippi State. And the Bulldogs need them to step up and be big this season. J.P. Purvis, again, he is Mississippi State's top returning tackler up front. He had an injury in the spring, but all things point to him being back and ready to go and looking good for the season. And then there was a guy, Braden Jenkins, who a lot of people were high on, JUCO transfer at linebacker that a lot of people say, oh, they liked him during the spring. He could be a guy that gets some good time. But, yeah, just looking up and down the defense, Chris, there's so many new faces. There's a first-year defensive coordinator in Coleman Huntsler, and I think – There's a lot of concern on the defense as well with this team. I mean, how are they going to build the culture, I think, is a big thing. What is the culture going to be like at the team overall for Mississippi State? But what is this culture on the defense going to be like? Because, again, Jeff Lebby, a great offensive coach. He really established himself as an offensive coordinator. But, what is the culture of the defense going to be like, I think, will be a big question with all of these new faces.
Bottom line, this program is just in a tough spot. There's no playbook for what happened with Mike Leach. I think State made I don't know if panic move is fair. I don't know how you put it. It made a reactionary move, and I don't even blame them. They went with Zach Arnett. And again, that's an unenviable spot. I don't know how you even begin to navigate that. But I remember going to media day last year in Nashville, and if you just said, all right, who are the guys that have not been head coaches before? Just listening to him speak, he was a guy that kind of stood out. It felt like the moment was a little bit big for him. State made the decision after last year to move on, and now you go back to a coordinator who's never had head coaching experience. Jeff Lebby is liked and respected in this profession. I think he'll end up doing okay there, but their NIL situation is behind most of the rest of the league. And, man, that's just – you look across the map, that's a lot of transition in coaches and philosophies. And we have looked up and down all the SEC rosters, and I think it's fair to say that State, in terms of just unknowns, backups that are being asked to start, I think there's probably more inexperience on this roster. And again, that goes to the head coaching position too, with a guy that's never done it, than probably anybody in the league. And that's a rough starting point.
It is, and again, you go back to what all's happened. I mean, it's almost an impossible situation. So you have to rebuild the culture, and it's not going to happen overnight. Like, I know Mississippi State fans would love for, you wake up this season and they're competing, at the top of the SEC. Well, it's not going to – it takes time. You have to rebuild the program, the culture, the roster. And Jeff Lebby's trying to do that. but it's hard. It's hard to do that when you're playing in the toughest league in college football in the SEC. And so, that starts with, hey, let's get guys out of the portal, which I think they've done a good job. They've got a lot of JUCO guys in as well. And now they got to work on recruiting and some high school guys in there and some of this top talent. They are behind. There's no doubt about it, but they've got to find a guy, and maybe Jeff Lebby's the guy. We'll see as the season moves on, that can help rebuild the culture of the program and get it back to what we've seen Mississippi State in the past. And it starts this year. We'll see if they can do it. But it's going to take some time to get this culture back the way they want it to. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And so they've hit the portal hard. They've got some good guys. Let's see how it translates on the field. Let's see what this offense is like under a good offensive mind of Jeff Lebby. But yeah, it's going to take some time to get this program back headed, I think, where everybody around the Mississippi State Bulldog program would like it to be.
Yeah, I think if they can win 4 or 5 games in year one, that's a big success. You got some built-in wins probably with Eastern Kentucky, with UMass. UMass is probably a bottom 5 team in the FBS. Eastern Kentucky is an FCS team. That should be a win. A road trip to Arizona State, a down Arizona State, that'll be early. And then the Toledo game, very winnable. But other than that, Bulldogs probably going to be double-digit underdogs in a lot of the games. Florida one and Starkville will be one to watch too, because that looks like their most winnable game. But yeah, I think they're asking a lot of Jeff Lebby in year one to go to a bowl if that's the goal. And I think something short of that can be considered success.
I think, I think so too. And again, it's a tough spot, and Jeff Lebby again is a great coach. You mentioned all things point to him being, a well-liked guy, good coach. We've seen him work with a great offensive coach in Lane Kiffin as he was coordinator there at Ole Miss. He's been at Oklahoma. We saw the numbers they put up last year, and he had Coach Dylan Gabriel at Oklahoma last year. So he's coached good players. He's put teams in good situations, and I'm sure he's going to look to do that at Mississippi State. But it's just the process of rebuilding, and it's not an overnight thing. I think people really need to understand that when you look at Mississippi State this year.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing how this goes. We'll have State covered in football all year. We cover football, basketball, and baseball wall to wall literally every week of the year on this channel. So hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. Those things help our analytics. The subscribe is free. You just like a follow. So we hope you guys will follow us for your SEC coverage. And if you're interested in sponsoring, we've got a link below that tells you how to do that. We've got an audience of millions every year. For Chase Robinson, I'm Chris Lee. We are Southeastern 16, presented by BetOnline.